Welcome into CyHawk Talk here on a Sunday. We're recapping the weekend of college football here in the state of Iowa. Only one of our FBS teams in action. So Ben's going to be the star of the show here talking about the Cyclones win over Houston. It was a shutout win, but kind of a weird one. They do most of their damage on offense in the second half. Defense looked good all day. Ben, what was your number one takeaway from the Cyclones' Big 12 conference opening victory down in Texas this weekend?
Look, Ethan, I think it's got to be that Matt Campbell is, the all-time win leader at Iowa State University. He's up to 57 wins, which sets the record. Pretty cool moment after the game where his family surprised him on the field. They flew in. Campbell said post-game he actually got to give the game balls to his wife, Erica, talking about the sacrifices and stuff they made, which is obviously the biggest story coming out of this game. But it's kind of interesting because if we didn't have that to talk about, and we didn't have a fantastic Iowa State defensive performance to talk about, we'd probably be talking about another slow start for the Iowa State offense, a game that was 3-0 against a bad Houston team for, well into the third quarter. So there's a lot of positive takeaways, and everyone's going to be talking about the big highlights, but not everything went right for the Cyclones on Saturday.
Yeah, it kind of felt like watching that game that Iowa State was in control for the entire time and maybe just couldn't string together enough plays on offense to find the end zone. They get that 3-point lead by halftime. How much did the second half change your perspective on this win? Do you still have a sour taste in your mouth from that first half? How much are you weighing just the inconsistent performance on Saturday?
I think it's something that'll kind of linger. It'll kind of stick around, right? Aside from Arkansas State, which an opponent of not a great defensive team, Iowa State really hasn't had a fantastic offensive half or things you can point to and think, man, this team is just moving the ball efficiently, moving the ball really well. Kind of remind me of watching my Denver Broncos a little bit, Ethan. But I don't know. Iowa State did get going in the second half. They had a touchdown. Jayden Higgins caught a nice one-handed catch that was, turned away by an ineligible lineman downfield, which was just a killer penalty, especially because Cal already missed a short field goal right after that. So you saw signs that the Cyclones were getting it going, and then late in the game, to get 20-0, you had Sama bust a big run, 70-some yards. So it certainly kind of pulled away at the very end, but this game certainly felt a lot closer than it actually was.
You mentioned Abu Sama's long run. Jaylon Jackson also getting a long run. We talked a little bit on Wednesday about the running game and maybe getting that going as we get into the season a little bit here. Where do you settle on? Is the ground game established? Has it arrived, or are they still maybe got some question marks swirling when it comes to that three-headed monster?
I mentioned Arkansas State's porous run defense, and I wanted to see how Iowa State ran the ball against a Power Four front. Houston, Power Four front, they did run the ball pretty well into a good Houston defense. I think if I were to break it down, I'd say Jackson ran the ball most consistently, efficiently. He's really good. You never know what you're going to get with a lower level transfer coming in, but he's a dynamic runner, and he's making guys miss with spin moves and juke moves that I haven't seen from many guys. And Sama, he kind of got loose on that one big play. That's the highlight. You heard the broadcaster who did the game for Fox Sports 1. He was going crazy. Abu Sama. So Sama had the highlight, but I think Jackson most efficiently ran the ball throughout the course of the game.
Ben, you wouldn't get this reference, but I think anyone who's been to the state high school track meet here in Iowa in either 2022 or 2023 has the name Abu Sama kind of seared into their mind because of how much Mike J, the track guy in Iowa, the PA announcer at Drake Stadium, said that name. He was such a superstar athlete on the blue oval that that name's just kind of seared into our minds on that just iconic call. So the call last night was excellent, but I think Mike J is still my favorite on just how he would call those long jumping duels in 4A that Abu Sama would have. So certainly a superstar athlete. Kind of feels like maybe the home run hitter, maybe not necessarily the every down, three down guy you just hand the rock to and have him pound straight ahead, 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guy, but maybe a home run hitter. Where do you think am I on to something there with Abu Sama?
I don't know. I think if I had to pick between the three, Ethan, I think I'd probably say Jackson is the home run hitter. He had a 50-yard run around the right side,
Hmm.
where he showed a lot of speed and just quickness getting out to that right side. So I think he's the home run hitter. Of course, we've seen Sama do it. He just did it. But I view him as kind of more of the between the tackles kind of bruiser guy. He just runs so powerfully. He's capable of it, but I think Jackson's probably the biggest home run threat.
And then you mentioned Jayden Higgins with maybe the catch of the century on a called back touchdown. Talk a little bit about what he's meant to this passing game as Rocco Becht has kind of come into his own under center with two really top options in the passing game.
Yeah, as somebody who's new to the Iowa State beat, I knew about Jalen Noel, I knew about Higgins. Both these guys are so spectacular. And Noel's the name you hear, right? Just because he's been around, he's so synonymous with Iowa State football. But Higgins in my time has been every bit, the player that Noel has been. Just been so impressed with Higgins. And in this game in particular on Saturday against Houston, Jalen Noel had some cramps in the second half, and he went out for the majority of that second half, right as this Iowa State offense was really sputtering, right? 3-0, deep into the third quarter. So Rocco Becht needed some help just getting things going. And he turned to Higgins, who had some big third down catches. Of course, the touchdown that got called back. And then on the very next series, Rocco Becht threw a nice back shoulder pass to Higgins, where he was able to finally catch the touchdown that pushed the lead to 2 scores. And the significant thing about that touchdown, Ethan, is that's 6 consecutive games that Higgins has caught a touchdown, which is an Iowa State record. Now two guys had it, and Higgins jumps past them. Dates all the way back to the Kansas State win last year. So Higgins has kind of quietly been the consistent producer. I called him Mr. Consistency in a story today.
Maybe also deserving of the game ball if Matt Campbell didn't have a bigger record to break on Saturday. Looking ahead, Iowa State's got Baylor next week at home. They're 4-0, 1-0 in conference play. They're sitting pretty. I assume they're going to take another, even maybe minor step forward in the AP poll later today. Looking at it, kind of starting to hear some whispers about the college football playoff with the Cyclones. Ben, I would like to know where you rank Iowa State on our playoff-ometer. Where are they going to fall on this emoji scale of confidence in terms of their odds to make the college football playoff this year?
Sometimes it's a little bit easier to just throw an emoji out there than throw a percentage or something. So I'm gonna give Iowa State's playoff chances the eyeball emoji, right? I'm watching them. I see what they're doing. I'm looking ahead to the Big 12. I think that's the clearest path is to win the Big 12. You get to host a playoff game. There could be a playoff game in Jack Trice Stadium this year, which is certainly something pretty cool to think about. But the Big 12 hasn't impressed me overall, right? I think there are 5 Big 12 teams remaining undefeated in conference play. Utah lost late last night. Oklahoma State falls to 0-2. And the teams coming up on Iowa State's schedule, you mentioned Baylor, don't necessarily scare you, as a Cyclone football fan. So I think there's a pretty decent chance Iowa State could rattle off a few wins in a row here and really build up some of that momentum. And maybe they'll move past the eyeballs on the emoji scale for the playoffs.
Yeah, you're looking ahead at the future schedule for the Cyclones, and you're thinking maybe game number 11 against Utah and game number 12 against Kansas State might be the toughest remaining games on the schedule. UCF, who they get in 3 weeks, got blown out by Colorado. The opponent after Baylor is West Virginia, who I can't say I've thought looked amazing this year. And then you have Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati. Not necessarily a daunting gauntlet for the Cyclones this year. So I'm certainly with you on the eyes here. And I think, in addition to you using the eyeball emoji to describe the way you're keeping tabs on the Cyclones, I think the nation's going to start having the eyeballs for the Cyclones in the playoff discussion. Iowa gets Ohio State next week in Columbus. We'll bring you guys all the storylines going into the matchups this weekend on Wednesday in the next edition of CyHawk Talk. Thanks for tuning in for this Sunday show, and we'll catch you guys on Wednesday. Thanks for watching.